let's be honest, buying or selling a home can feel like you're trying to read a foreign language, right? It's all legal terms and rules that nobody ever explains. Well, today, we're going to fix that. We are breaking down the absolute must-knows, everything from what your agent really owes you to the nitty-gritty of the contract that holds the whole deal together.
So, here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the person who's supposed to be your guide, your agent, and what they're actually required to do for you. Then, we'll dive into the paperwork, how an offer goes from a maybe to a definite yes. After that, we'll look at the dramatic part, what happens when deals hit a snag. And we'll wrap it all up with the big picture rules that everyone in the game has to play by.
All right, first up, your agent's core duties. And look, this isn't just some casual business thing. This is a serious professional partnership. We're talking about probably the biggest purchase or sale of your life, so you absolutely need to know what they're on the hook for.
So, what's the deal? What do they actually owe you? It is way more than just unlocking doors or putting a sign in the yard. Your agent is working under a pretty strict legal and ethical code that's all designed to protect you. And it really all comes down to one key idea.
And here it is. This is the big one. Fiduciary duty. Honestly, this is the foundation of the entire relationship. In plain English, it means your agent is legally required to put your best interests ahead of their own, and ahead of everybody else's. No exceptions.
What I find so interesting here is the balancing act. I mean, think about it. Your agent has to handle your money perfectly, keep your secrets locked up, like, say, how badly you need to sell. But at the same time, they also have to treat everyone else in the deal, including the other side, with honesty and fairness. It's a tricky line to walk.
Okay, so we've got the agent's duties down. Now let's talk about the paperwork, the documents that make this whole thing legally real. This is the moment we go from just talking about a deal to being locked into one.
So when does an offer actually become a contract you can't just back out of? It's not just when you sign on the dotted line. It's a three-step dance. An offer gets written, then it gets signed by everybody, and this is the key. That final acceptance has to be communicated back to the person who made the first offer. You need all three for it to be a done deal.
And that brings us to one of the most fundamental rules of any contract. The people signing it have to be legally able to do so. They need what's called legal capacity. For the most part, that means you've got to be at least 18 years old. The whole idea is that someone younger might not totally get the seriousness of what they're signing.
Okay, so this is where things get a little nuanced, but it's really important. There's a huge difference between a contract that's void and one that's voidable. A void contract is basically dead from the start. Think a contract to do something illegal. But a voidable contract, like one signed by a minor, is different. It's a real contract, but the minor has the option to back out. You know that old saying, a handshake deal isn't worth the paper it's written on? Well, in real estate, that's not just good advice. It's pretty much the law. It's because of something called the statute of frauds. To avoid a he said, she said mess, the law says that contracts for selling property have to be in writing to be enforceable.
But, and this is a big but, like with most rules, there's a loophole. That whole must be in writing thing has a major exception. Short-term leases. Yeah, if you're just renting a place for a year or less, a verbal agreement can actually be a totally legit, legally binding contract.
Okay, let's talk about the scary part. You've got a signed contract, everything seems perfect. And then, someone gets cold feet or a surprise pops up. What happens when a deal starts to go south?
So probably the most common way this happens is a buyer just decides to back out for no good reason. When that happens, the seller usually gets to keep the buyer's earnest money deposit. This isn't seen as a punishment, it's a pre-agreed amount called liquidated damages that's meant to make the seller whole for all the time and effort they lost.
And you see this idea everywhere, not just in home sales. Think about a construction contract. It might say the builder has to pay a fee for every day the project is late. That's liquidated damages. It's a smart way for both sides to know exactly what the financial hit will be if someone doesn't hold up their end of the bargain.
But wait, backing out doesn't always mean you've broken the contract. Most contracts have these little escape hatches built right in. They're called contingencies. So if a buyer's inspection turns up a leaky roof or a cracked foundation, that inspection contingency gives them a legal, penalty-free way to say, nope, I'm out.
All right, for our last section, let's zoom out. Beyond any one contract, there's a whole code of conduct, a set of ethics and legal lines that every real estate pro has to follow. This is what keeps the whole system running, hopefully, fairly.
This is one of my favorite distinctions because it highlights the fine line between good salesmanship and, well, lying. An agent saying a house has the most beautiful view, That's just an opinion, or what the law calls puffing. But an agent saying the roof is brand new when they know it's 15 years old, that crosses the line into misrepresentation. And that's a huge no-no.
At the end of the day, being a true professional really comes down to these things. It's about being competent. If you're an agent trying something new, you need to have a mentor. It's about knowing your limits and having the guts to say, you know what, you really need to talk to a lawyer about this. And it's absolutely critical to respect privacy, to know what information is protected by law and must never, ever be shared.
So there you have it. From your agent's duties to you, to the fine print in the contract, these are the rules of the game. And knowing them isn't just about trivia, it's about power. It's about turning what can be a really stressful process into something you can walk into with total confidence. The next time you're in a real estate deal, you're not just a player, you know the rules.